Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Christian Influencer Podcast. We have a really cool guest today. CRISTIN LUDLOW is joining us. She's joining us remotely, so she's going to be kind of having to look at our faces through a screen just like you guys are. But the good news is she's got some really good stories and testimony to share with us. So, CRISTIN, why don't you just start with who you are, what you do, who's CRISTIN, so we know why we want to hear the rest of your story.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate you guys so much. Like you said, my name's CRISTIN LUDLOW, and we actually have a business that's very, very close to my heart. 100% believe that God has called us into this and is ordering each and every one of our steps. In 2017, we got a call from a really close friend that had let us know about a company that they were wanting to start. And it all began because one of his partner's mom was dealing with a stage 4 condition in her lung. And the doctors pretty much had exhausted all their options and said there was nothing more that they could do. And so they told her to get her affairs in order. She was being seen by Sloan Kettering at the time. And so our friend Simon started reaching out to family members and letting them know what was happening. And he got a call from his cousin, who's a physician in Japan. And his cousin said, look, I know that she's going through this, but there's a mushroom that we use. It's a little capsule that she can start taking, and it'll just support her own immune system. And let's see what her immune system can do. So they sent over these capsules of this mushroom supplement to Simon's mom. And within a month of taking, she's taking about 10 of them a day. And within a month, she started feeling a little bit better. And then after 2 months, she was feeling completely back to normal. And so 4 months later, she went back to Sloan Kettering, who was surprised to see her because they'd only given her a couple of weeks left. And they said, what is going on? How are you doing? She said, I feel great. And so they ran some tests and they could find no more evidence of what she was dealing with. It was completely gone. And so when that happened, our friends, Simon, whenever anyone was dealing with anything, because Sloan Kettering started a study on this mushroom and found that all it does is support the immune system. And we all know God gave us our immune systems. It's intelligently designed to handle everything that's happening in the body. It repairs, rebuilds, rebalances, regulates everything. And God designed it that way. Also, God has created everything that we need is growing abundantly in nature for us. And so when they started doing these studies and found how strongly it supported the immune system and how it was no different from eating a mushroom on a salad, so it didn't interact with any medications or treatments, you couldn't get addicted, you couldn't overdose, there were no side effects, anything like that, they thought, wow, this is something that's really special that can be really helpful. And so they started recommending to other people, hey, you got to try this mushroom, and shared Simon's mom's story. And they were getting back the most amazing testimonials of what God was doing through this mushroom in people's bodies. And so after doing that for a little over a year, it took a long time to come from Japan into the United States. So they actually brought that strain into the United States. It's a very United States. I put strain and states together, excuse me.
No worries.
It happens. So they brought that strain over to the United States and started manufacturing and processing it here. It's a really potent and pure strain, and they've just perfected the extraction process. And they were offering it for many years for people here in the United States. But in 2017, Gino, who had originally called us, had lost his dog to cancer. Steve, his other partner, lost his dog to cancer, and 2 of Steve's daughters lost their dogs to cancer, all in the same year. So they started taking a look at, this can't be a coincidence, right? They ranged from 4 to 11 years old. So they looked into it, and they actually found a great documentary and found some great studies that showed that it was mainly stemming from exposure to the foods and treats and toys that our pets are chewing and ingesting. It's causing all kinds of problems in their body. So once they realized that our pets were living half as long as they used to, and that this was becoming an epidemic, they started thinking about, well, wait a minute, we know what this mushroom has done for people all these years. I wonder if it's safe for animals, because not all mushrooms are safe for animals. And so sure enough, they found a study done by the University of Pennsylvania that showed that it was not only safe, but very beneficial for animals, that dogs that were on the Coriolis versicolor mushroom were living twice as long as the dogs that weren't. So they thought, oh my goodness, this could be something really special. And they reached out to us. We started this company, Pet Club 24/7. And I don't know if you've ever tried to give your dog like a capsule before or a pill.
I've tried.
It's horrible. A lot of times they just spit it out and you have to start back over
Yeah.
at square one. So they
Peanut
thought,
butter becomes your best friend,
right?
or best friend rather.
Absolutely. And so
See, I
they
do it too.
So they thought it would be a lot more fun, hey, let's bake this into treats and let's add it into a handmade gravy for dogs and cats and just make fun ways to get it into our pet systems. And then that way, they're not only getting these supplements that are helping them live better, longer, happier lives, but at the same time, they're like a cookie, right? A treat, yay. So we started with these biscuits called Mush Puppies and this gravy called Special Sauce. And
Oh,
I'll never forget one of our very first experience with it. We had a friend that had posted on social media that they had to say goodbye to their dog Zenta soon. She was almost 15 years old and she had had a bad autoimmune disease for many of years. Her paw pads were peeling off, her eyes were white and cloudy, her fur was just coming out in clumps. And she was in so much pain. We couldn't even pet her because she would just whimper with pain. And they had to lift her up to take her outside to use the restroom and, bring her back inside and put her in her favorite corner. So when they went to the vet, of course, the vet recommended she's not doing well. She's in a lot of pain. The average husky lives to be 12. She's almost 15. I think it's time to say goodbye. And they just felt in their spirit, I think God was speaking to them and telling them like she's not ready yet. So they got a couple $100 worth of narcotics and steroids, brought her home to keep her comfortable, pretty much put her on home hospice. And they had posted that on social media. So we reached out to them and said, look, we have these cookies, these little dog biscuits called the Mush Puppies. I don't know what it could do for Zenta, but at the very least, maybe it could give her more comfort as she's going through these last couple of months with her life. And so she started taking 3 or 4 of these little biscuits every day. And on the 4th day, they called us and they said, what did you give our dog? And they had never used like a stern tone with us before. And my husband and I just kind of looked at each other like, what? Is everything okay?
Yeah, did we just kill their dog?
Literally our first experience. And so we're like, oh, is everything okay? And they were like, Zenta just jumped on the couch.
wow.
Oh, how cool.
She hasn't done that in over a year. Do you think it's these cookies? We were like, honestly, we don't know. Like, we've seen the research, we've seen the studies. Have you done anything else? Have you given her anything else? They're like, no, this is the only thing we've done differently. We're like, well, that's good, right? Like, let's keep giving them to her and see what happens. Within a month, Zenta was walking on her own. Her paw pads were healing. Her fur was growing back. Her eyes cleared up. She was able to see objects before she would bump into things. And at that point, we thought, oh my goodness, God is doing something so special. This is more powerful than we thought. And they said, we don't want to give her the narcotics or the steroids anymore. You think we can just give her these mushrooms and see what happens? We're like, yeah, absolutely. So she kept eating the mush puppies. We gave her the special sauce to try, and she just mixed that in with her food every day. And Zenta lived another 4.5 years.
Whoa.
Almost a 20-year-old dog, yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
He was almost 20. And the best part
For
is
a big
that,
dog, too.
oh, good. The average age is 12.
Sure.
Yeah.
Almost.
I have huskies.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh.
you have two.
The best part about this whole story is that during those extra 4.5 years, her quality of life was amazing. She was going on 5-mile hikes in the desert. She was playing with the puppies. She was swimming in the lake. And even they had grandkids that she would have never been able to meet had they said goodbye to her initially. And they have video and pictures of the grandkids cuddling with her and playing with her and laying on her, which before we couldn't even touch her without her whimpering. So it's such a special story. Even Simon's mom lived another 28 years after that. So when we saw that with Zenta, I remember thinking like, what a fluke. Like, what are the odds? The very first dog that we gave him to had such an incredible turnaround and such an incredible recovery. And even though I had seen the hundreds of published studies, that was the first experience I had with my own eyes. And I thought, oh my goodness, Lord, if we could do this for one more animal, one more cat, one more dog, one more horse, like all of our efforts would be worth it to see that, because it was just such a special thing. And over time, we found that it was not a fluke. It quickly became the norm. Dog after dog, cat after cat, horse after horse, over 90% of the time, we were seeing their own bodies resolve and rebalance and repair what was happening. And that's when we knew that this, we were called to this, that this is a mission. And we all know that we're called to be good stewards and take care of creation, right? And be good stewards with everything that God's given us. And so we thought this is such a special company to be part of. It's such a blessed company because we're being a part of the restoration of creation, and we're taking care of the animals and the plants and everything that God asked us to take care of when He put us in charge.
I love that. That's so awesome.
So
Well,
it
Kristen, oh,
so
go ahead.
sorry. So it's been such a powerful movement as we've been seeing what happens. And we added, as a matter of fact, after a little while of people seeing all of these things happening with their pets, just the most amazing things, they said, wait a minute, can people take these too? And so they ended up adding the original human capsules to the website as well. So we've seen God restoring not only animals, but also a lot of people's lives, and giving them the ability to step into their purpose and to pursue the calling that God put on their lives, because now they had the wellness and the health to be able to do that.
That's just amazing. That's
Mhm.
amazing. And Kristen, I love that you kind of brought up the stewardship, especially of God's creation. But the calling that you've been talking about is kind of where I want to go next. Let's go back to Kristen's, like when you were a child, and did you get brought up in a Christian household?
Mhm.
And when did you come to Christ? What was that like? And where has He kind of come through, especially in this journey as you've obviously been taking steps towards trying to steward and help the kingdom, including His animals and His other creations. We're called to steward all of that.
Mhm.
So I love that. But how, for you, when did you jump on the bandwagon with Christ leading the way?
Mhm. Yeah, I've always been a believer. I've just always had a strange faith, even as a little girl. And I remember just knowing what God could do and what I could do through Christ from a very, very young age, and believing truly all things are possible, right? And so as I grew up, I ended up going to college and becoming a Bible and Christian ministries major. And I was a youth pastor, and I led missions trips around the world of hundreds of students, taking them all around the world. And not only preaching the gospel, but actually stepping it out, doing social relief efforts, helping build and garden, and just anything that we could do to help people. While we were sharing with them Jesus love, we were showing them Jesus love at the same time. And I was going down that path, and I was just convinced that I was going to be a pastor and a missionary my whole life. And what happened was I ended up having kids, and I got postpartum, and I didn't know that I had postpartum. So all of the sudden, this bubbly, optimistic, faith-filled girl that I had been my whole life was dealing with some very dark feelings and not understanding where it was coming from, or what it was. And I didn't know what was happening, and it ended up being really destructive. I had two children, and I ended up getting a divorce because I was so depressed, and I just lost my way. I call them my asleep years, because I felt like I was asleep. Like, it doesn't even feel like that was me during those years when I was kind of lost. And I remember, goodness, I had a very clear moment. I had a moment of clarity when I felt metaphorically like I was in the mud at the pig troughs, laying in the mud and thinking I couldn't get any lower. My life couldn't get any worse, not even remembering who I was before this. And God had never left me. I just turned my back on Him, if that makes sense. He
Sure.
was
Yeah.
always there, still comforting me and helping me, but I had just kind of lost my focus and turned my eyes away from Him. And because of that, I was sinking, right? I was no longer walking on the water, I was sinking. And I remember thinking, what's the safest place that I remember? And it was my Father's house. And in that moment, it brings tears to my eyes. In that moment, I thought, I'm going back home. I'm going back to my Father's house, like a prodigal daughter moment.
Hmm.
And I just ran. I ran back as fast as I could. And of course, He saw me coming and ran over and embraced me. And that was that was one of the truest moments of my life of complete surrender, because it's easy to believe and it's easy to surrender when you're not really faced with that much adversity or that much guilt or shame or, heaviness, which I had not ever really had a lot of in my life until that moment. And so it's a completely different feeling when God goes from being your helper and your encourager to being your true savior and your
Mm.
rescuer. And he rescued me from myself and from my own decisions and from my own feelings. So at that moment, I gave it all to God. And then I started business, and God blessed it. And we started a foundation, and God blessed it. And now I've gone from really being a doer, which is what I've been my whole life. I've always been a goer, wherever here I am, send me. Like
Mhm.
Isaiah said, that's always how I've been. Here I am, send me. I don't care what it is, I'll do it. And God has really positioned us now in a place of influence and blessed us with a lot of resources. So now we can actually be senders and multiply the work that he's doing. We could sow seeds and we can water them and multiply what he's done in our lives through countless other lives. So and I'm only 43, so I'm so excited. I'm like, all of this has already happened. I can't wait to see what God does. I'm very grateful he's given us hearts of just a radical generosity. Like, we want to be kingdom investors. We want everything that we do, our business, our lives, our family, our friends, everything we do for fun. We want to bring glory to his name, and we want to use it to build the kingdom and bring the kingdom of heaven down to earth as we pray.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
it's been a powerful journey, and I hope I covered it all in a nutshell. So
And then
much
some.
in between.
Well, I guess, gosh, I'm trying to actually recover. The prodigal story is so powerful, but just you can see it as you're telling it, like it's living, it's different. And I'm sorry, I'm trying to compose myself as I get back to. I had a moment similar, so you brought
So
memories up to me.
I'll jump in and say that
Okay.
it's incredible to hear your story once again. I know I've got to be a part of the Ludlow's friendship, and I really appreciate your friendship at Kingdom Wealth Managers, which for the people on the podcast, it's a Christian entrepreneur grounds of getting not only a good word in, but just to be able to help each other out and just encourage each other.
Mm.
And one of those things is that's been incredible to hear. Just, yeah, not just the product of the pet club, but just to hear success stories of just hearing what God has made for us in his creation and his kingdom. That all these things are literally made by him.
Mhm.
And it's just encouraging to hear that.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, once again.
Kristen, actually, I have that's a great question then, because you guys started this up from the ground up. Like you literally found something, cultivated it, turned it into an entire system, and where has God shown up to? You said He blessed it, so where's some examples of like where He kind of blessed you along the way?
Oh goodness, all along the way. And I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful that I was raised knowing the Bible and knowing the stories, because as you go through things, especially in business, it's not it's not easy, right? Like, if it were easy, then everybody would just be doing it. It can be really challenging, and there's so many times where I felt like there were just giants right in front of me, just all lined up, just all these giants, and thinking, how are we going to move forward? How are we going to go into victory? And just like David with that little stone, I'm like, I put these little mushrooms in my slingshot. And
Slay the
I'm like,
giants,
I
one
might not
mushroom
be
at a
able
time.
to do it, but God can, and just wind it up, which, by the way, I
Yeah.
don't know if you've ever seen like the slingshot that they actually used back in the day,
Oh
but it's
yeah. No.
little thing that we know of
No. No.
today.
No. They
Jump, skip, leap, swing thing.
Yeah.
Really cool.
No. This current day, I've seen current day like videos on YouTube not that many years ago, where there are expert slingshotters
Yeah.
and they're shooting it like a bullet.
It's
So
amazing.
yeah.
Yeah. But, God, and I've just seen it time and time again, something that felt insurmountable, that we were up against. But not leaning on what we could do, but leaning on what God could do. And I think that's something that's so important for business owners. God has to be your number one business partner. He has to be the largest shareholder. He has to be your counsel, your coordinator, every part of it. Because when God is in control and when God is your business partner and you're speaking life into your business and you're leaning on the promises of not only what God can do, but what he does, what he has done in the past and he's still doing today and he will do in the future. When you're leaning on that, there are entire armies of angels that are making a way. They're making a way where it feels like there's no way. It feels like there's no solution. How are we going to get around this? And God always makes a way and he's never late. He's always on time. Like the timing's always perfect. And so I just want to encourage people that maybe they're experiencing a season of delay where they're wondering, why aren't I here yet? Or why hasn't this happened? Or, they're waiting for that breakthrough, that this is the most valuable time of your life. Like God is preparing you for something. I always think of the desert when God told them, when they were complaining that the army didn't have any water and there were no clouds in the sky, there was nothing. And the soldiers were like, what are we going to do? And God said, go dig ditches. And they're like, why? There's not even a cloud in the sky. And God was like, go dig the ditches. And they all went out and started digging ditches. And then the rain came and then they had stores of the water that was available for them. I always think of that in business, that use that time to prepare because the harvest is coming. And when God gives you a vision, like when God calls you to something, it must happen. It has to happen. It's inevitable. And when he calls you, he will equip you. It's inevitable. He would not call you and without equipping you. And so when you lean on that and remember that and keep God your primary business partner and just keep moving forward in faith, knowing that I would not have received this vision, I would not have this in my heart if God did not plant it and God did not plan for me to accomplish it. Because a lot of times people start doubting themselves, and that's very natural. But when we have someone that we can rely on, that we know we can do all things through, then that's what gets us through those tough times. But Christ has just carried us through this every step of the way, literally ordered every step. So I always think of it like GPS, just follow the blue line.
Okay.
He says, turn right, turn left, just do it and you'll get there.
Well, let me ask you a question. So
Obedience.
if there's, because what I'm thinking of, I've done some business stuff too, and sometimes you'll have obstacles that come up. And there's times where you're even doubting, is this God trying to tell me that this is not what I'm supposed to do? Versus this is the enemy saying, I don't want you doing what God has in store for you. How do you distinguish between the two?
Knowing your Father's voice. That's how.
I love it.
Remember in the Garden of Eden, what did Satan say to Eve?
Oh, surely you won't die. Yeah. Did God really say that?
Yeah, surely you will not die. Yeah.
Surely you will not die. Did he really say that?
Mm-hmm.
And that's how the enemy speaks to us. Like, do you really think that you can accomplish that? Do you really think that that's possible for your life? Do you really think that your business could grow to that level? And it comes in as little seeds of doubt. And when God shuts a door, there's no doubt. In my life, every time that God shut a door, it was 100% because a bigger door was available. So what felt like rejection or what felt like a loss was always a gain. It was always positioning me for something greater or for something better. And again, the timing has always been perfect every time. And I used to sit there and go, why God, why? Why is this happening? And now when a door shuts, I thank him. I'm like, yes, I don't know why you shut that door, but you showed me in the past that every time you shut a door, a bigger one is opening. You're preparing me for something greater. And whatever I needed to learn from that experience or relationship or whatever it is, has prepared me for the next greater thing. And that's the funny thing about growing with God. What does the Bible say? We go from glory to glory. We go from battle to battle, glory to glory, strength to strength. And every battle is harder than the first one. Everyone always thinks, oh, it's going to get easier. It's going to get easier. Once I win this battle, it's going to be over. No, once you win that battle, you go into the harder one. But just like when you're playing a game, you get stronger and you get better and you get closer to God and you get more discernment and you have more grace and you understand how to play the game better and how to fight better and do all the things better. So it makes, even though the battles are getting progressively harder, you're getting progressively better, which makes it feel like it's progressively easier.
Yeah, something that I was reminded of when you were talking right now is like not only the seeds of doubt, but then if you don't have the seeds of doubt, you have the faith of a mustard seed can move mountains. And it's just incredible to hear just your step in faith in that.
Absolutely.
And if you don't believe you can do it, which is okay. Like I feel, I don't ever want people to feel bad about having these very natural feelings. It's very natural. That's what courage is. Courage is not an absence of fear. The fear is still there. Courage is just doing it anyway, even with the fear there, right? And so I don't want people to feel bad that they're having these feelings, but just know that God can, God wins, and God has and always will. He's provided, he's protected, he's healed, he's done everything for us. Everything up until this point in your life, God has done for you, and he'll continue to do it. So even when you're doubting yourself and you're hearing that little nagging voice, did God really say? Do you really think you're good enough? All those little things, be in the word, stand on the promises of God. You are a child of the King. You are a royal heir. You are a priesthood. You are all of these things, right? And stand on those promises of who God says you are, so that when you hear that little voice telling you what you're not, that you can stand up against that and say, oh, I hear you saying that, but this is what God says, and I'm going to choose to listen to God over you. And those little steps will really help you as you go forward.
CRISTIN, thank you so much. I wish we had more time with you. Unfortunately, the clock doesn't stop. But before we go, where can people find these mushrooms that you do? How can they learn more about you and your company?
Well, we have a website. You can go to thebestformypets.com, and you can learn about the mushroom supplements that we have for pets and people, and also share them. You know, if you know anyone that you care about that's dealing with anything with their pets, you could always share it with them as well, so they can get access to what God's provided for us.
That's beautiful. CRISTIN, thank you so much for joining us. Literally a prodigal story in real time, a story of seeing God come through on big promises, even when you don't think that they're possible. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your testimony and sharing your heart. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to learn more about CRISTIN, I encourage you to go ahead and visit her website and look more on that. And as always, just remember that if you are a follower of Christ, you're already an influencer, and we are CIC.